Some wounds never bleed, yet they shape a person more deeply than scars ever could. For years, Daniel lived with a memory he never spoke about. A night that changed everything, a silence that grew roots inside him. He told himself he had moved on, that the past could no longer touch him. But when a familiar face unexpectedly returned to town, carrying truths he had buried long ago, Daniel realized that some memories don't fade on their own. They demand to be confronted, understood, and forgiven. The storm arrived without warning. Rain slammed against the windows of the old Miller house, turning the quiet suburban street into a blur of trembling shadows and flickering streetlights. Inside, 16-year-old Daniel Miller sat at the edge of his bed, fists pressed against his temples, trying to steady his breath. He had always hated storms. The sound of thunder felt like a fist pounding on a locked door, the kind he could never open without fearing what stood on the other side. Down the hallway, voices rose, sharp, tense, too familiar. His parents were arguing again. It started the way it always did, a small spark, a misunderstanding, a tired sigh. And then it grew, the frustration, the disappointment, the exhaustion of two people who had stopped knowing how to love without hurting each other. Daniel tried to shut it out, but the words seeped into the walls, into his bones, into everything he thought was safe. You're never here, and you're never listening. A plate shattered, a chair scraped violently across the floor. And then, silence. The kind that didn't feel relieved, but dangerous. Daniel stood. He didn't want to go downstairs. He didn't want to see their faces twisted in anger, or their eyes filled with the sorrow they never spoke about. But something in the silence pulled him, a cold instinct, the kind that wakes you up before something goes terribly wrong. He stepped into the hallway. Lightning flashed, illuminating the house for a split second. Daniel saw the shape of his mother, trembling, her hands covering her face. His father stood by the doorway, shoulders heaving, guilt already sinking into his expression. Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but before he could take a step, another sound cut through the air. A car engine, fast, too fast. Tires screeched outside the house, followed by a sharp, metallic crash. Daniel's heart dropped. He sprinted to the front door, yanking it open just as another flash of lightning revealed the scene in the street. A dark sedan had slammed into the lamppost, smoke rising from the hood. A woman stumbled out, soaked in rain, clutching something against her chest. Daniel blinked, confused, until the woman looked up, and in that moment, the storm, the house, the shouting, the fear, everything disappeared, because Daniel knew that face. Even after all these years, even from that distance, even through the rain, it was Emily Carter, the girl he never expected to see again. The girl who vanished the night he needed her most. The girl tied to the memory he had spent years trying to forget, and she was back at the worst possible moment. For a moment, Daniel couldn't move. Emily Carter, soaked to the skin, trembling, clutching something tight in her arms, looked like a ghost pulled out of the past by the violent storm. The last time he had seen her, they were 12, standing at the edge of Willow Creek, promising they would always look out for each other. Then she disappeared. No goodbye, no explanation. Just gone. Daniel stepped off the porch slowly, his shoes splashing into cold water pooled along the walkway. The storm raged around them, thunder swallowing every other sound, but Emily's wide, terrified eyes never left his. Emily, his voice cracked. Is that really you? She nodded weakly, strands of drenched hair sticking to her cheeks. Her lips parted, as if she wanted to speak, but instead she held out what she had been clutching against her chest. A small bundle of fabric, a blanket. Something moved inside it. Daniel's breath caught. No, it couldn't be. Emily stumbled forward, nearly losing her balance. He rushed to catch her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. She was shaking badly from the cold, the fear, or something deeper he didn't yet understand. Please, she whispered, voice fragile, help me. Daniel looked down at the blanket again. Rain ran in rivulets across the soft, worn fabric. As Emily loosened her grip, the bundle shifted and a tiny face appeared, scrunched and crying softly against the storm. A baby Emily had brought. A baby? What Emily? What's going on? Daniel asked, his voice breaking between confusion and worry. She swallowed hard, tears mixing with rainwater. I didn't know where else to go. A fresh wave of thunder rolled over them, pushing Daniel into action. He gently guided her toward the house. Come inside, you're freezing. Emily hesitated for a second, like she wasn't tea. Sure, she deserves shelter, but then she nodded. Daniel opened the door, ushering her in. His parents, moments ago, locked in an explosive argument, stood silent in the living room. His mother's hands were still trembling, his father's jaw was still tight with leftover anger. But all of that dissolved when they saw Emily soaked, shaking, holding a newborn in her arms. Dear God. Daniel's mother rushed forward. What happened? Emily tried to speak, but her voice faltered. Daniel helped her onto the couch, then wrapped a dry blanket around her shoulders. His father knelt down, inspecting the baby with careful hands. How old is the child? Emily's lips trembled. 3 days. Daniel froze. 3 days. His mother pressed a hand to her mouth. Sweetheart, where are your parents? Emily looked up, and in that look, Daniel saw something he didn't expect. Not fear, not confusion, but guilt. A deep, suffocating guilt. "They don't know where I am," she whispered. "They don't know about the baby." "Nobody does." Daniel felt the room shrink around him. "Emily, whose child is this?" Emily clutched the baby tighter, as if the answer itself was dangerous. "I'll tell you," she said softly, eyes glistening with grief. "But not tonight, not while she's still in danger." She a daughter. Daniel exchanged a look with his parents, a silent question none of them knew how to answer. Then Emily looked at him again. "Danny, I came here because you're the only person I have left." Something in his chest twisted an old wound, reopening. Outside, the storm grew louder. Inside, everything grew still. Whatever story Emily had brought back with her, whatever secrets she had been carrying for years, whatever danger she was running from, it had finally found its way to Daniel's doorstep. And nothing, not his family, not his past, not even Emily herself would ever be the same again. The storm eased by morning, but the house felt heavier than the night before, as if the thunder had rolled inside and settled quietly in every corner. Emily slept on the living room couch, the newborn resting against her chest. Daniel had barely slept at all. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard her voice again. "You're the only person I have left." He hadn't been able to decide whether that sentence warmed his heart or broke it. When Emily finally stirred, sunlight was filtering in through the curtains. Her eyelashes fluttered, and for a moment she looked peaceful, almost like the girl he remembered. The girl who used to race him across the fields and dare him to climb the tallest tree in Willow Creek. Then the baby whimpered, and all that innocence twisted into tension. Emily sat up quickly, rocking the little bundle before she even fully opened her eyes. Instinct, fear, protection. Daniel watched her quietly from the dining table, not wanting to startle her. "Morning," he said softly. Emily's grip tightened around the baby before she realized where she was. Her shoulders relaxed a little when she recognized him. "Danny, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fall asleep. You needed it." He offered her a small smile. "How's she doing?" Emily looked down at the tiny face peeking from the blanket. "She's hungry." Daniel stood. "My mom boiled some formula. I'll get it." When he returned with the bottle, Emily hesitated, not out of doubt, but out of something else. Shame, maybe. Regret. She took it with trembling fingers and fed the baby slowly, carefully. The child suckled greedily. Daniel sat across from her. "What's her name?" Emily froze. The question shouldn't have been complicated, but the look in her eyes said it was. She stared at the baby for a long moment, brushing a damp curl from the child's forehead. "I haven't named her." Daniel blinked. "What? Why?" Emily swallowed hard, voice barely above a whisper. "Because I didn't think she'd live this long." His breath hitched. "Emily, she was born early," she continued, staring down at the small fingers curled around hers. "Too early, no hospital, no help, just me. I kept thinking, if she died, it would be easier not to give her a name." Her voice cracked like thin ice. "But she didn't die. Danny," she fought. Daniel's chest tightened. The storm outside had quieted, but the one inside Emily was still raging. He leaned forward. "Then she deserves a name. Something strong. Something meaningful." Emily looked up, eyes brimming with a mix of fear and longing. "I don't know how to choose one," she admitted. "Everything feels wrong. Everything about this feels wrong." "Hey," Daniel said gently. "Nothing about a child surviving is wrong." She flinched, as if she didn't quite believe that. Daniel took a slow breath. "How about we choose together?" Emily stared at him for a long time, searching his face for something she hadn't dared hope for. Safety, forgiveness, maybe even a chance at rebuilding what was broken. "What if," she whispered, "you name her Danny?" He froze. "Me. She trusts you already," Emily said, nodding toward the baby now resting against her shoulder. "She didn't cry in your arms last night," she settled, "like she knew you." His heart thudded, uneven and loud. He approached slowly, sitting beside her. The baby's eyes blinked open, dark and surprisingly steady, as if studying him. A name came to him, softly, unexpectedly. A name from their childhood. Hope. Emily inhaled sharply. Daniel cleared his throat. "Remember? The story we used to tell, the one about the girl who survived the winter storm because she carried hope in her pocket." Emily's lips trembled. "Hope," she repeated, tasting the word like something fragile and sacred. "That's beautiful." She looked down at the baby. Then, with a voice steadier than before, she whispered, "Welcome to the world, Hope." For the first time since she arrived, something shifted in Emily, a tiny crack in the wall she had built, letting a sliver of light inside. Daniel exhaled. Relief, warmth, something more he couldn't name. But as the baby settled again, Emily's expression darkened. "Danny," she said quietly, "there's something you need to know, something about her father." Daniel stiffened. "What about him?" Emily hugged Hope closer, as if bracing for impact. "He's not just someone from my past." She swallowed hard. "He's the reason I ran." Outside, the clouds gathered again. Not a storm of rain, but a storm of truth finally preparing to break. For a moment, Daniel didn't move. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thinner. He stared at Emily, waiting, dreading the words that would follow. The baby slept peacefully against her chest, unaware that her mother was unraveling. Emily took a shaky breath. Danny, I didn't just leave him, I escaped. The word escaped hit him like a blow. He leaned forward slowly. Emily, what did he do to you? Her eyes darted toward the window, as if expecting someone to be watching. When she spoke, her voice was so soft it was barely there. He controlled everything. Where I went, who I talked to, even what I wore. At first, it felt like he just cared, like he wanted to protect me. She shook her head, a bitter smile flickering across her lips. But people like him don't protect, they trap. Daniel felt something cold crawl up his spine. Did he ever hurt you? Emily hesitated long enough for him to know the answer before she whispered it. Yes, Daniel's fists clenched. Emily went on, her voice steadying as she forced herself through the memories. It started small, a push, a bruise, accidents, he called them. Then he said I made him angry. That it was my fault. That if I were better, he'd be better. Daniel breathed out slowly, fighting the urge to break something. One night, Emily continued, her fingers trembling against Hope's blanket. He found out I was pregnant. I thought he'd be happy. But instead he said the baby was a mistake, that I was ruining his life. A tear slid down her cheek. I realized then that staying meant she'd never be safe. So I waited until he passed out, packed what I could carry, and ran. Daniel's jaw tightened. Did he try to follow you? He did more than try. Her eyes filled with raw fear. He found me twice, dragged me back once. But the last time, I managed to get away before he saw me. After that, I stopped using my phone, stopped talking to anyone. I hid. And that's why you came here, Daniel said quietly. Emily nodded. I didn't know where else to go. I knew you'd at least open the door. I'll do more than that, Daniel said, voice low and fierce. You're safe here. He won't touch you. I won't let him. Emily closed her eyes, breathing unevenly. Danny, you don't understand. He's not just angry. He's dangerous. He doesn't stop. If he finds out where I am, he won't. You don't know that. Her whisper turned sharp, almost desperate. Hope stirred lightly, and Emily soothed her instinctively, her hands shaking. Daniel softened his tone. Emily, look at me. She did. You're not alone now. Not anymore. And I'm not going to let anything happen to you or Hope. I swear it. Her lips trembled. Why are you still helping me after everything? After the way I left you? Daniel opened his mouth, but the truth stuck in his throat because he had never stopped caring. Because a part of him still loved her. Because he couldn't bear the thought of her suffering alone. But he said none of that. Instead, he whispered, because you needed help. Emily bit her lip hard, trying not to cry. Before either of them could speak again, a sudden noise echoed from outside, a car door slamming. Emily froze. Her eyes widened with terror. Danny, she whispered. He found me. Daniel stood instantly, muscles tensing as he moved toward the door. But when he looked outside, a truck was parked in front of the house. And stepping out of it wasn't a stranger. It was his older brother, Mark. Daniel exhaled sharply. Emily sagged in relief, but only slightly. Fear had rewired her body. Every sound was a threat. Daniel opened the door. Daniel, open the door. Mark, what are you doing here? Mark approached with a puzzled, wary look. Mom called me, said you had guests. His eyes shifted past Daniel, landing on Emily and the baby. The confusion vanished, replaced by something colder, sharper. Recognition. What the hell? Mark muttered. Emily Andrews. After all these years, Emily stiffened. Daniel felt something twist in his gut. This wasn't just surprise. Mark knew something he shouldn't have. Danny, Mark said slowly, eyes narrowing. You need to tell me the truth. He stepped closer. Is that her baby? Or is that your baby? Daniel froze. For a heartbeat, the world around him went silent. No wind outside. No ticking clock on the wall. No soft breaths from the baby sleeping against Emily's chest. Only Mark's question remained, hanging in the air like a blade between them. Is that her baby, or yours? Emily's eyes widened, her breath hitching softly. She clutched Hope closer as if the very question could harm her. Daniel swallowed. Mark, not here. Not like this. But Mark didn't move. His gaze flicked from Emily to the baby and back to Daniel with sharp calculation. So it's true, Mark muttered. I knew Mom wasn't just assuming things. Daniel stiffened. Mom said something. Of course she did, Mark replied. She's not blind. She knows what you were like after Emily left. And she knows what it means when a woman suddenly shows up at your door with a baby and fear in her eyes. Emily flinched at the word fear. Daniel stepped forward, blocking Mark's view. This has nothing to do with you. Mark raised an eyebrow. It has everything to do with me if you're remaking decisions that could put this family at risk. Emily's breath grew shallow. I'm sorry, she whispered, voice trembling. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just needed Emily, Daniel said firmly. You don't have to explain anything to him. But she looked at Mark anyway, guilt shadowing her expression. I didn't come here to drag Daniel into my problems, she said softly. I just didn't know where else to go. Mark crossed his arms. And the baby? Are you saying she's not his? Emily's grip on hope tightened. She hesitated. Daniel saw the hesitation, saw Mark see it too, and his stomach dropped. Her father isn't Daniel, Emily said finally. But that doesn't mean I'm safe. Mark studied her closely, looking for lies. He found none, but confusion was still etched into his features. Daniel stepped forward. Emily escaped an abusive man. That's why she's afraid. That's why she came here. Mark blinked. Emily nodded. And you believed her? Mark asked, looking at Daniel. Daniel's voice darkened. I didn't need to. I saw the bruises. Emily stiffened, shame flickering in her eyes. Mark's posture shifted, a hint of guilt tugging at his stern expression. I didn't know. You weren't supposed to, Daniel said quietly. Emily kept it hidden. From everyone. Mark glanced toward the baby again, his voice softening slightly. So the baby's the man who hurt you. Emily nodded again, this time with more difficulty. Mark let out a long breath. Okay. Then we need to talk about what comes next. Daniel's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Mark stepped closer. If that man is as violent as you say, how long before he figures out where she went? How long before he shows up here? Emily's fingers trembled again. Daniel's jaw clenched. We'll deal with it. We? Mark echoed. Danny, this isn't just your problem. You still live in the family home. Mom comes by all the time. And if this man is as dangerous as she says, he won't care whose door he breaks down. Daniel's silence was answer enough. Mark sighed. Look, I'm not saying Emily can't stay. I'm saying we need a plan. Emily spoke up suddenly. I don't want to endanger anyone. I can leave if no, Daniel said instantly, the force of it startling even himself. Emily stared at him. You're not going anywhere, he said, voice steady. Not until you're safe. Mark watched the exchange, something complicated flickering across his face. Recognition, understanding, and maybe even a glimpse of the truth he had been afraid to name out loud. After a long moment, he exhaled. Fine, he said, I'll help. Daniel blinked. You, what? Mark shrugged. What kind of brother would I be if I didn't? Besides, it looks like you were going to do something stupid and heroic, whether I am involved or not. Emily managed a small, weary smile. Mark stepped fully inside the house now, the tension easing just enough for the room to breathe again. But before he could say anything else, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his face drained of color. Mark, Daniel asked. What is it? Mark lifted his eyes slowly, dread settling in. You both need to hear this, he said quietly. He turned the phone around. On the screen was a message from an unknown number, a photo of Emily, taken from behind a row of parked cars, and beneath it, a short, chilling sentence, I found her. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Daniel felt something inside him ignite fear, fury, instinct, all at once. Mark swallowed hard. Danny, he's here. And just like that, the fragile safety inside the house shattered. The morning sun streamed through the blinds, casting long, golden stripes across the floor. Ethan had been awake for hours, pacing quietly in the living room. He knew the journey of redemption would not be linear. There would be setbacks, old habits, and buried emotions waiting to resurface. Today, he had decided he would confront not just his past mistakes, but the shadows of his own neglect, those moments of absence that had hurt Lila and Maya the most. The conversation he dreaded after breakfast. Ethan asked Lila if they could talk. She looked at him cautiously, but agreed. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the quiet hum of the refrigerator the only background sound. I need to talk about the past, Ethan began, not to dwell on it, but to face it. To face the mistakes I made, the times I wasn't there, the promises I broke. Lila's eyes softened, yet a hint of steel remained. It's painful, Ethan. Revisiting old wounds isn't easy. Are you sure you're ready? Ethan nodded. I am. I need to understand everything to take responsibility fully. I can't keep pretending it's just about showing up now. I need to confront the shadows I've left behind. The unexpected revelation. He began to speak about specific moments, birthdays he had missed, late nights working instead of attending school events, the evenings he returned too late to tuck Maya into bed. With each admission, Lila listened silently, occasionally nodding, sometimes swallowing hard. It wasn't just the absence, Lila said finally, her voice trembling, it was the invisibility. When you were home, sometimes you were here physically, but not emotionally. We existed in the same space, but you weren't present. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. He had been blind to that truth for years. I see it now, he whispered, and I am so sorry. I understand how deeply that hurt you and Maya. Mayas perspective later that afternoon. Ethan sat down with Maya. He wanted to hear her side, to understand the child's perspective of a father who had been distant. Daddy, Maya began cautiously, I was sad when you weren't there. Sometimes I felt like you didn't care, like I didn't matter. Ethan took her hands in his. I care, Maya, you are everything to me. And I know saying it now doesn't undo the past, but I promise to be here from now on, fully. No more absent days. No more ignoring your feelings. Maya studied him for a long moment. Then, with a small smile, she whispered, "Okay, Daddy, I believe you, but you have to show me." Ethan nodded, tears welling in his eyes. "I will. Every day." The family walk. That evening, Ethan suggested a walk through the nearby park, a place full of memories from before his constant traveling began. Leela hesitated but eventually agreed. Maya held Ethan's hand tightly, her little fingers warm and insistent. As they walked, Ethan spoke softly. "I want to hear from both of you. Everything I need to understand. The things I missed, the ways I hurt you, even the small things I didn't notice." Leela's voice was quiet but firm. "It's not just about noticing. It's about being consistent, being aware, being emotionally present, and sometimes it's about facing your own fears, your fear of responsibility, of intimacy, of failure." Ethan nodded. "I know now, and I'm ready to face those fears. For you, for Maya, for us." Confronting the shadows, the walk continued in silence for a while. But then Lila spoke again, her words carrying a weight Ethan had never fully comprehended. "Ethan, the shadows of our life together are not just your absence. They are the unspoken resentments, the silent nights, the things left unsaid. If we are going to move forward, we need to confront them together." Ethan took a deep breath. "I'm ready. I will face every shadow, every regret, every mistake. I will not shy away from the pain I caused. I will work through it with you." For the first time in months, a sense of unity formed between them, fragile, tentative, but undeniably present. They weren't fixed, and they weren't whole, but they were facing reality together, hand in hand. The night of reflection. That night, after Maya was asleep, Ethan and Lila sat on the porch. The stars were scattered across the sky, like scattered pieces of their fractured past. Ethan spoke softly. "I never realized how much I took for granted, your patience, your love, the little moments that truly mattered." Lila reached out, touching his hand. "It's not too late, Ethan, but we must be honest with each other. No more pretending, no more avoidance. Confronting the shadows is the only way we move forward." Ethan squeezed her hand, feeling the weight of his own guilt, but also the flicker of hope. "I will. Every day, I'll face them. For us, for Maya, for the life I almost lost." And for the first time in a long while, the house on Willow Lane felt like home, not just a building, but a living, breathing space where he could finally belong. The man lingered on the driveway, rain-dampened hair plastered to his forehead, eyes fixed on the front door. Daniel felt his pulse hammering, every nerve taut. He moved slightly in front of Emily, silently signaling her to stay behind him. Hope stirred in her arms, sensing the tension, but remained asleep. "Emily," the man called again, voice low but dripping menace. "You think you can run? You think you can hide?" Daniel stepped forward, fists clenched. "You're not taking her. Not ever." The man's smile widened, cold and unsettling. "Ah, Daniel, still protective after all these years." "I can't say I expected that." Emily flinched at the sound of her ex's voice. Her chest tightened around Hope. "Stay back," she warned, voice shaking but firm. "Emily," Daniel said gently, but his eyes never left the man. "You need to leave. Now." The man tilted his head, as if amused by Daniel's courage. "Leave? Oh no, my dear, I don't think you understand. I'm not leaving until I get what's mine." Daniel's hands tightened into fists. "Hope isn't yours to take. You hurt her. You hurt her mother. You'll answer to me first." The man's eyes darkened. For a moment, Daniel thought the situation might erupt into violence. The tension was almost unbearable, the storm from the previous nights still echoing in his chest. Then the man laughed. A harsh, cruel sound. "You think you can stop me? You think a boy like you can protect her from me? I've done this before. I've always gotten what I wanted." Mark stepped forward, placing a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "He's bluffing," Mark muttered. "We've got numbers on our side. You're not alone." Daniel's eyes flicked to Mark, silently acknowledging the support. Then he turned back to the intruder. "I don't care what you've done in the past. It ends tonight. You leave now, or we call the police. You won't take her." The man's smile faltered, but only for a second. Then he stepped closer, one slow, deliberate step. "You've grown, stronger than I remember, but strength alone won't save you. You'll see." Emily's hands shook as she held Hope, tears welling in her eyes. Daniel noticed, and he felt a surge of anger and protectiveness. "I said, stay back." He barked, louder this time. "One step closer, and I swear." The man paused, reading Daniel's determination. Then, with a final glance that promised revenge, he stepped back, raised his hands slightly, and spoke with icy calm. "This isn't over. I'll be back, and next time, you won't be so lucky." With that, he turned and walked toward his car parked at the edge of the driveway. The engine roared to life, tires squealed on wet asphalt, and he disappeared into the darkened streets. Daniel sank to his knees, finally letting himself breathe. Emily held Hope close, rocking her gently, whispering reassurances. Mark exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. The immediate threat had passed, but the sense of danger lingered like a shadow. Daniel knew this confrontation was only the beginning. He looked at Emily and Hope, and his voice softened. "We survived tonight, but we have to be ready. For him, he'll come back." Emily nodded, resting her forehead against Daniel's chest. "I don't know how I can ever repay you for everything." Daniel held them both close. "You don't need to repay me, just stay safe. That's enough." Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying a quiet promise. The storm wasn't over, and neither were the battles to come. The morning after the confrontation felt heavy, the kind of weight that sits on your chest and refuses to lift. Emily sat on the couch, Hope sleeping against her shoulder, while Daniel and Mark moved through the house with a purpose. Every door was checked, every window secured, and every possible entry point assessed. "We need cameras," Mark said, pulling out his phone. "If he shows up again, we need to know before he even reaches the door." Daniel nodded. "And locks on the back doors. Reinforce the garage. We can't leave anything to chance." Emily watched them, feeling both gratitude and guilt. I never wanted to drag you into this. I just needed a place to hide." "You didn't drag us anywhere," Daniel said firmly. "You trusted us." "That's enough." Mark's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, eyes narrowing. "We also need to consider where he might be watching from. People like him are patient. He'll be watching, waiting for a mistake." Daniel looked at Emily. "We're going to create a safe zone here. Inside these walls, you and Hope are untouchable. We plan, we protect, we act if he comes. And we don't let fear control us." Emily swallowed, trying to hold back tears. "I don't even know how he found me tonight." "He has ways," Mark said, voice low. "People like him. They always find a trail, even if it's just the smallest hint. That's why we stay ahead. Cameras, locks, contingency exits. We have to think like him to beat him." Daniel paced the room, mind racing through possibilities. "We'll also need an escape plan. If he somehow breaks in, we get Emily and Hope out immediately. They're SA safe house, I know, someone I trust, and we'll be there in minutes if we have to." Emily shook her head. "I can't believe how much you're doing. For me, for her." Daniel's gaze softened, but his determination never wavered. "It's not just for you, it's for Hope. She's innocent in all of this, and if I can protect even that much, I have to." Mark pulled out a map of the town, spreading it across the table. "We need to plan routes, alternate routes, any place he might monitor. And Daniel, you need to be ready for confrontation again. He's not going to stop." Daniel's jaw clenched. "I know, I'll be ready." No one is touching her. Emily watched him silently, feeling a mix of fear, relief, and something else she hadn't felt in years. Hope. For the first time since she had arrived at the Miller house, she dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, she and her daughter could have a future where they weren't constantly looking over their shoulders. Mark looked at both of them, voice firm. "All right, cameras, reinforced doors, escape plan, safe house. We split responsibilities, and we stay alert. No mistakes. He won't catch us off guard again." Daniel nodded. "Agreed." The next hours were filled with meticulous preparation. Cameras were installed, locks reinforced, emergency bags packed with essentials for Emily and Hope. Each step was methodical, calculated, every precaution designed to give them the upper hand when the time inevitably came. Emily finally allowed herself to breathe, watching Daniel and Mark work. She whispered softly to Hope, "We're going to be okay, little one. You're safe here." Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the lawn. It was quiet for now, but Daniel knew better than anyone that the calm would not last. The man who had terrorized Emily and the baby would return, and when he did, they had to be ready. Daniel glanced at Emily, his eyes steady. "No matter what happens, I won't let anything happen to you or her. That's my promise." Emily nodded, holding Hope close. "I trust you." And for the first time since the nightmare began, Daniel allowed himself to believe they might just survive it together. Night had fallen again, and the quiet that usually accompanied darkness felt unnatural, heavy with tension. Emily held Hope close on the couch, the baby's tiny fingers clutching the blanket. The dim light of the living room cast long shadows, making every corner seem like it could conceal danger. Daniel sat near the front door, eyes trained on the street outside. Mark stood at the window, phone in hand, camera feed, monitoring the perimeter. Every creak, every rustle of the wind made their hearts skip a beat. Hours passed slowly, the silence almost unbearable. Then, a faint noise from the front yard, a soft crunching of gravel, broke the stillness. Daniel's hand moved instinctively to the pocket where he kept his phone and a small flashlight. He whispered to Mark, "It's him. Get ready." Mark's eyes were sharp. "Stay calm. Let's see what he does." The figure approached, slow and deliberate, as if savoring the fear he had instilled. Daniel could now clearly see him, tall, broad-shouldered, and exuding a cold confidence. The man who had haunted Emily's life for months. The man who claimed to be her daughter's father. Emily's hand shook as she clutched Hope. "Danny, please," she whispered. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Stay behind me. I've got this." The intruder reached the front door, pressing his face close to the glass panel. "Emily." I know you're in there, I can feel it. Don't make me come in there myself. Mark leaned closer to the window, murmuring into his phone. He's trying to intimidate her. We need to be ready to call if he steps through that door. Daniel stepped forward, blocking the view of Emily. This ends tonight. You're leaving, or you're dealing with me. The man laughed, low and cruel. Always the hero. Daniel. But you weren't there to protect her before, were you? You let me take everything from her, until now. Daniel's fists clenched. I won't let you take anything from her again. Not Hope, not Emily, not ever. Suddenly, the intruder kicked the door hard. It rattled violently in its frame. Daniel gripped the handle, bracing for the impact. Mark's voice was sharp. 911. Now Emily pressed herself against the wall, whispering reassurances to Hope. It's okay, little one. It's okay. The man kicked again, louder this time. The door groaned, but it held. Daniel pushed back with all his strength, eyes locked on the intruder. You really think a flimsy door is going to stop me? The man sneered. Emily, come out. You belong to me. Daniel's voice rang with authority. You're done. If you step through that door, you'll answer to me first. For a tense moment, nothing moved. Then the intruder stepped back, muttering under his breath. He pulled something from his pocket, a key, Daniel thought, and started working on the lock. Daniel glanced at Mark. Time to move. Emily, Hope, upstairs. Now Emily didn't hesitate. She clutched Hope and bolted for the staircase. Daniel right behind her. Mark covering the back exit. The intruder's footsteps grew louder as he realized she was escaping. Daniel ushered Emily and Hope into the master bedroom and locked the door. He placed his body between the intruder and the room. Mark called out. He's trying the back door now. Danny, hurry. Daniel's heart pounded. Every second felt like an eternity. The man's shadow loomed closer, a threat not just to Emily but to the fragile sense of safety they had tried to create. Then, a sudden blaring of a car horn startled the intruder. Mark had started the engine of his truck and shone the headlights onto the man, exposing him fully. The man hesitated, his eyes flicking from the truck to the house. Rage and frustration crossed his face. This isn't over, he hissed. You can't hide forever. Then, as suddenly as he arrived, he turned and disappeared into the darkness. Emily collapsed onto the bed, holding Hope tightly. Tears streamed down her face, a mix of relief and lingering fear. He's gone. For now, Daniel sat beside her, exhausted but vigilant. For now, but we're ready. He won't surprise us again. Mark stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. We need to stay alert. This was only the first strike. He'll come back, and we need to be smarter next time. Emily whispered, her voice trembling. I don't know how I survived this. Daniel pulled her close. You survived because you're stronger than you think, and because you're not alone anymore. I'll make sure of it. Outside, the night was quiet once more, but the sense of threat lingered like a shadow over the house. The intruder's presence had left its mark, and Daniel knew the real fight was just beginning. The following night, the storm returned, drumming against the roof and windows with a relentless rhythm. Inside the house, the tension was nearly suffocating. Emily sat on the couch with Hope, clutching her tightly as if shielding her from the world. Daniel and Mark moved silently, checking the doors and monitoring the cameras. Every shadow, every sound, set their nerves on edge. Then it happened, a sudden crash from the kitchen. Daniel's heart leaped. He motioned for Emily to stay put and grabbed a flashlight, moving cautiously toward the noise. Mark followed closely, phone in hand. Emily, Daniel whispered, voice tight. Stay upstairs if you can. Lock the bedroom door. Emily shook her head. No, I'm staying with Hope. Daniel glanced at her. Torn? Okay, but hold tight. Don't open the door for anyone. The intruder had returned. He had learned from the last night's failure. Now, he was bolder, more desperate. Daniel could feel the malice in every movement. The way the man's eyes gleamed with a cold, calculating intent. Mark whispered, he's inside. Front door was forced open. Cameras show him moving upstairs. Daniel's fists clenched. He could hear the faint sound of footsteps on the stairs, each one echoing like a drumbeat of impending danger. Emily held Hope closer, whispering, it's okay, baby. It's okay. The intruder appeared in the hallway outside the master bedroom, smirking. Thought you could hide from me, Emily? You belong to me? Daniel stepped in front of the door, his voice steady but fierce. Step back. Now this ends tonight. The man laughed, a low, chilling sound. Oh, it ends only when I say it ends. A tense silence filled the room. Emily could barely breathe, her heart pounding in her chest. Hope stirred, sensing the tension. Daniel took a deep breath, preparing for confrontation. Leave now, or you'll regret it. The intruder's expression darkened. I've waited long enough. You think a little barricade can stop me? Suddenly, he lunged forward, trying to break the door. Daniel shoved it back with all his strength, the impact rattling the frame. Mark yelled from the hallway, 911. They're on their way. Emily clutched Hope tighter, tears streaming down her face. She whispered prayers, desperately wishing this nightmare would end. The intruder paused for a second, glancing toward the window. Mark had strategically triggered a motion sensor alarm outside, sending flashing lights and sirens through the yard. The man's face twisted with rage and frustration. "This isn't over," he hissed. "I'll get you next time." He disappeared down the stairs, retreating into the night, leaving the house trembling in the wake of his presence. Daniel sank to his knees, drenched in sweat and adrenaline. Emily held Hope close, whispering, "We survived. We survived." Mark exhaled, voice low, "For now, but he'll be back. We have to be ready, or he'll catch us off guard next time." Daniel's gaze hardened. "Then next time, we end this. Once and for all. He will not touch her again. Not ever." Emily rested her head against Daniel's shoulder, tears mingling with relief. I don't know how to thank you." Daniel shook his head. "No thanks, just stay safe. That's enough." Outside, the storm raged on, lightning illuminating the night sky. Inside, the three of them sat together, hearts still racing, knowing that this battle was far from over. But for the first time, they felt a small spark of hope, that together, they could face whatever came next. The next evening arrived with a heavy, suffocating stillness. Rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective under the dim glow of the streetlights. Daniel, Mark, and Emily were ready, every precaution in place. Doors were reinforced, cameras checked, and an emergency escape plan rehearsed down to the second. Every muscle in Daniel's body was tense, anticipating the moment the intruder would return. "I know he's coming," Daniel said quietly, standing near the front door. "We have to stay calm and act smart. No mistakes." Mark nodded. "We're ready. Cameras escape route, the police on standby. This time we're not letting him control the situation." Emily held Hope close, whispering softly, "I don't want him to hurt anyone anymore." Daniel gently stroked her hair. "He won't, not tonight. We end this now." A faint noise echoed outside, a deliberate, cautious step across the driveway. Daniel's hands tightened into fists. Mark checked the cameras and whispered, "Front entrance. He's here." The intruder's shadow appeared under the porch light, larger, angrier, and more determined than ever. His face was a mask of obsession, his eyes locked on Emily. Daniel stepped forward, standing between the intruder and the house. "This is your last warning. Leave now, or you face the consequences." The man laughed, a low, menacing sound. "Consequences? You don't know the meaning of the word. Emily, she belongs to me." Daniel's voice rose, steady and filled with authority. "No, she belongs to herself. And tonight, you're leaving. Forever." The intruder moved suddenly, lunging toward the door, but Daniel reacted instinctively, blocking him. The struggle was tense, a clash of force and desperation. Mark moved in, holding a flashlight to disorient the man. Emily whispered to Hope, "It's okay, Mommy's here." The man's face twisted with rage. "You think you can stop me?" Daniel pressed forward, determination fueling every movement. "Yes, we are stronger than your fear. You will not take her, not tonight, not ever." The man faltered for a moment as the flashing lights of Mark's camera system illuminated the yard, the cameras feeding live to the police who were now on the way. Panic flashed in his eyes as he realized he had underestimated them. "No, this isn't over," he yelled, backing toward the street. "Go, now," Daniel shouted, voice unwavering. "And don't ever come back." Finally, the intruder turned and ran into the darkness, disappearing down the slick streets, the echo of his footsteps fading. The storm outside mirrored the storm within them, but slowly, the tension began to ease. Emily collapsed onto the couch, holding Hope, tears of relief streaming down her face. "It's over. It's finally over." Daniel knelt beside her, brushing her hair from her tear-streaked face. "For now, but the important thing is that you're safe. That's what matters." Mark joined them, voice soft but firm. "He won't be coming back. Not with the police and the cameras in place. You did what you had to do. You survived. Emily, you survived." Emily smiled faintly, exhausted but grateful. "I couldn't have done it without you both. You saved us." Daniel held Hope close, feeling the weight of the past weeks lifting just slightly. "We protected her because it was the right thing to do. We'll always protect her, no matter what." Outside, the night was still, quiet at last. The shadows of danger had receded, leaving only the fragile, precious light of survival. And for the first time, Emily allowed herself to believe that they could finally have peace, a life where fear no longer dictated their every move. The morning sun spilled softly through the curtains, painting the room in warm, golden light. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt the weight of fear lift slightly from her chest. She sat on the couch, Hope nestled in her arms, watching the little ones stir and yawn. Daniel stood nearby, sipping his coffee, eyes soft as he watched them. Mark had left for the day after ensuring the police patrols were steady and the security cameras fully operational. The house felt calm, almost serene, a stark contrast to the stormy nights that had threatened their safety. Emily whispered to Hope, brushing the baby's hair back gently. "We're safe now, little one. Safe and free." Daniel came closer, sitting beside them. "You've been so strong through all of this," he said. "I couldn't be prouder." Emily shook her head, a faint smile on her lips. "It's not just me. You and Mark. You risked everything. I don't know how to ever repay you." "You don't have to," Daniel replied. "Just living, enjoying life, and keeping Hope happy. That's all the repayment we need." Days passed, and slowly, the rhythm of normal life began to return. Emily took walks with Hope in the park, feeling the sun on her face without the constant paranoia that had consumed her for so long. Daniel worked alongside her, helping to repair the house and create a safe environment where laughter could replace fear. Mark visited often, bringing a sense of camaraderie and support, ensuring that Emily never felt alone. Together, the three of them established routines, plans, and boundaries, giving Emily the tools to reclaim her life. One afternoon, Emily sat on the porch with Daniel, watching Hope crawl on a blanket spread across the lawn. The soft breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers, a quiet promise of renewal. Daniel smiled at her, his hand brushing hers. "You've come a long way. From fear to strength, from hiding to living. I know it wasn't easy, but look at you now." Emily let out a deep breath, feeling the tension in her shoulders dissolve. "I couldn't have done it alone. But now I feel like I can finally breathe." Hope looked up at them with innocent eyes, her tiny hands reaching for both Emily and Daniel. The sight made Emily's heart swell with hope, a future where fear no longer ruled their lives, a life where love and safety could flourish. Daniel whispered softly, "We survived everything together. And that means we can face anything the future holds." "For Hope, for us." Emily nodded, tears of relief and gratitude glistening in her eyes.
"Yes.
For us, the intruder's shadow had been vanquished, not by brute force alone, but by preparation, courage, and the unwavering bond of those who refused to be victims." Emily had survived the nightmare, and in doing so, had discovered the depth of her own resilience. And in the quiet aftermath, surrounded by the warmth of sunlight, the laughter of hope, and the steadfast presence of Daniel, Emily realized something profound. The past could no longer control her. The chains of fear had been broken, and a new chapter awaited, one filled with love, safety, and the promise of tomorrow. For the first time, Emily allowed herself to imagine a future without dread, where each day was a gift, each smile a victory, and every heartbeat a reminder that survival had its rewards. And as she held Hope close, she knew, truly knew, that they had not only survived, but they had begun anew. Closing reflection for the audience. And now, the story of Emily, Hope, and Daniel comes to an end. But what about you? If you were in Emily's shoes, facing fear and uncertainty, what would you do? Would you stand your ground, or try to escape quietly? Share your thoughts and advice in the comments below. Your words could help someone find courage in the face of their own storms.